concept associated with normalization is functional dependency, which describes the relationship between the attributes. The word is important. Which describes the relationship between attributes. Means, suppose the attribute staff has staff number, then name, salary, position, etc. Now, functional dependency, what is described? It describes the relation between these attributes of the relation. Means staff number, this is the name of this staff number. This is the salary of this staff number. This is the position of this staff number. Means all together, for this name, this salary, for this name, this position. There is a relation between each and every attribute that described by the functional dependency. Functional dependencies play a key role in differentiating good database design from the bad database design. It's a constraint on the set of legal relation. It is nothing but the integrity constraint on the set of relation. Functional dependencies require that the value, the simple definition, the value for a certain set of attributes uniquely determine the value for another set of attributes. The value for a certain set of attributes uniquely determines the value for another set of attributes. What is that? We'll see with mathematical definition. So a functional dependency generalization of notion of a key. Means with the help of functional dependency, we can identify the keys also. Candidate key and then primary key. Okay. So now see the mathematical definition of functional dependency. So, in mathematical term, how we define the functional dependency? Let R be a relation schema and alpha is a subset of R. What is alpha? It is a subset of R. Means it is the set of one or more attributes. It is the set of one or more attributes. Alpha is the subset of R. Similarly, beta is the subset of R. Means it is again the set of one or more attributes. The functional dependency alpha tends to beta. How we call it? Alpha tends to beta, or beta functionally dependent on A. Alpha tends to beta, or we can say beta functionally dependent on alpha. So the functional dependency alpha tends to beta holds on relation R if and only if for any legal relation R, whenever any two tuples T1 and T2 agree on the attributes alpha, then it also agree on the attributes beta. If these two tuples T1 and T2, suppose this is the tuple T1, this is the tuple T2. So if these two tuples, this is suppose A, this is B, or alpha and beta. So if these two tuples agree on alpha, then these two tuples must agree on beta also. Means what? T1 alpha is equal to T2 alpha implies that T1 beta is equal to T2 beta. Implies that T1 beta is equal to T2 beta. Means if these two values are same, then these two values must be same. If these two values are same, then these two values must be same. Then we can say alpha tends to beta or beta tends to alpha. That is the first. Or alpha uniquely identify beta. Means all the values are unique. Alpha uniquely identify beta. See once again. Let R be a relation schema where alpha is a subset of R and beta is a subset of R. The functional dependency alpha tends to beta holds on R if and only if any two tuples T1 and T2 agree on alpha, then that must agree on beta also. Means what? T1 alpha is equal to T2 beta implies that T1 beta is equal to T2 beta, or alpha uniquely identify beta, or alpha uniquely identify beta. Now see, with this example, we are going to see some example, then it will be clear, more clear to you. Now we consider this example. This is A, this is B. Now we are going to say whether A tends to B or B tends to A. Now start with first tuple T1 and T2, both are same. So according to the definition, if T1 alpha is equal to T2 alpha, then T1 beta must be T2 beta. Is it there? Is it there? No, it is not there. And that's why A tends to B does not hold on this relation. Does not hold on this relation R. See once again, A, T1 and T2 both have the value 1, same value. But in the B, T1 and T2 does not have the same value. Means it not satisfies this condition. And that's why A tends to B does not hold on this relation. Then B tends to A holds. We are going to check whether B tends to A holds. So you can observe that B values all are unique. All are unique. Means 4 uniquely identify 1, 5 uniquely identify 1, 7 uniquely identify 3. Means alpha uniquely identify all beta values. Alpha uniquely identify all beta values, means B tends to A holds on this relation R. Means B tends to A holds on this relation R, but A tends to B does not hold. So in this way we can identify it. Okay, A tends to B does not hold, but B tends to A holds. Now see another example. This example. Now in this example, A and B are the two attributes. Now we are going to check whether A tends to B or B tends to A. So here A tends to B is there. A tends to B is there. Why? Because for these two tuples it has the same value. For these two tuples it has the same value. 2 uniquely identify this value and 3 uniquely identify this value. Remaining tuples are unique. Means it falls on this relation R. Whether then B tends to A holds? No. Why? Because these 3 tuples have the same value T1, T2, T3. Then these 3 tuples must have the same value. But it is not there. These 3 tuples have the same value, but these 3 tuples does not have the same value. So B tends to A does not hold on R. B tends to A does not hold on relation R. Okay, now see another example. This one. So in this case, you can observe here that these two tuples have the same value. These two tuples are the same value. These two tuples have the same value. These two tuples have the same value. And A3 uniquely identifies C2. Then we can say A tends to C holds on R. But when we consider in opposite way, what happens here? These two tuples have the same value. These two tuples have the same value. Now these 3 tuples have the same value, but here it is not the case. And that's why C tends to A does not hold on relation R. That is the simple concept of functional dependency. On this instance, A tends to C holds, but C tends to A does not hold. Now we see some more difficult example. A, B, C, D, 4 attributes are there. Now we start with the simple single attribute. Multiple attributes also we can combine. Multiple attributes also we can combine and check the functional dependency. Why? Because alpha tends to beta. alpha tends to beta. Alpha and beta is subset of R. It may be one or more attribute. Not necessarily always it is a one attribute. It may be more than one attribute. Now, looking at this, which are satisfied and which are not satisfied, that we are going to see. Which are satisfied and which are not satisfied, that we are going to see. Okay. So, A to C is satisfied here, D to B is satisfied here. These are all not satisfied. But when we combine these two attributes together, what values comes here? A1, B1, A2, B2, A1, B1, A2, B2, A2, then A1 and this one. So all are unique values. All are unique values when we combine these together. And that's why we can say AB tends to C and AB tends to D. All are unique values as we consider AB together. That's why AB tends to D and AB tends to C. But afterwards, this AB tends to C, which becomes redundant, and we need to remove it from the functional dependency. Why? We are going to see afterwards. Now we consider it is satisfied, AB tends to C, but it becomes redundant. Why it becomes redundant? We are going to see afterwards in the example of full functional dependency and partial functional dependency. Okay, in that case, I am going to show you why it becomes redundant. Okay, we need to remove it actually. So, in this way, you can check for B and C together. Is it possible? B and C, these together, these together, these together, these together. No, both become same. So if both are same, it should be same or this should be. So BC does not hold on A, BC does not hold on D in this way. Okay. So here these are some functional dependencies which are satisfied on this relation, and these are functional dependencies which are not satisfied. And again, after we are going to see how to identify these functional dependencies from the given relation. That in detail we are going to see how to identify the functional dependencies. Now here we identified only looking towards this instance. Whatever the instance given here, whatever the values are given here, accordingly we identify the values or the functional dependency. Now, what is mean by determinant? When a functional dependency exists between alpha and beta, when a functional dependency exists, the attribute or group of attributes on the left hand side of the arrow is called determinant. Very simple definition. The left hand side of the arrow, whatever the attributes or set of attributes, these are called determinant. So if A tends to B, A is the determinant. A is the determinant. If A, B tends to D, then A, B is the determinant. The attribute or group of attributes on the left hand side is known as determinant. How we call this type of functional dependency? A functionally determine B. We call in two ways. The first is A functionally determine B, or in other words, B is functionally dependent on A. A functionally determine B, or B is functionally dependent on A. In this way we can say. Another example, that is our staff. If we consider this staff with staff number, S name, position, salary. So simple functional dependency is here. staff number is the primary key. So we can say staff number tends to name. Why? Because it's a unique. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So staff number, as it is a primary key, it uniquely identify all other attributes. That is shown here. So consider the attributes of staff number and position. Another attribute is considered here. Staff number, position. So staff number functionally determine position, or position depends upon the staff. So the staff number SL21, what is his position? Manager. He or she is position manager. Suppose we consider another one, another staff SL21 is manager. Then SG37, what is the position? Assistant. SG14 supervisor. SA9 assistant. SG5 manager. SL10 assistant. So staff number functionally determine the position. So staff number becomes the determinant in this case. But can we write it opposite way? Position determines the staff number? No. Position. Why? Because the position manager, for position manager, there are two staff. For position manager, there are two staff. And that's why we cannot write this functional dependency. Position tends to staff number. So position does not functionally determine the staff number, but the staff number functionally determines the position. In this way, can we write salary to staff number? We can write staff number to salary instead of position. It is correct. Why? Because that staff has this salary. That staff has 90,000, 8,000, 18,000, 30,000 salary, particular salary. But we cannot say salary tends to staff. It is not possible. Because multiple same values or multiple staffs have the same salary. That's why not determines. So in this way, if we know the relation, we can also find out the functional dependencies in this way. Next part, that is inference rules for functional dependencies, that we are going to see now. So what is inference rule? So from the given set of functional dependencies, we can derive another set of functional dependencies. Suppose 3 to 4, 5 functional dependencies are given there. Then from that functional dependencies, we can derive another set of functional dependencies. So a set of all functional dependencies that are implied by or derived by a given set of functional dependencies, X is called closure of X. What is known as closure of X, and it is written as X superscript plus, indicating some of the functional dependencies that are implied by the given set of functional dependencies, that we call closure of the set of functional dependency X, and it is denoted with the symbol X and subscript plus, and what we call it as a closure of set of functional dependencies X. So there are some rules for this set of how to identify or find out this another set of functional dependencies, and that is derived by the scientist Armstrong, and that's why these inference rules are called Armstrong's axioms. These are known as Armstrong axioms, which are used to compute X closure from X. So there are three major rules, basic rules of Armstrong axioms. What are these major rules that we are going to see first? Let A, B and C be the subset of attributes for the relation R. A, B and C subset of attributes. Maybe a single attribute, maybe group of attributes. So Armstrong axioms means nothing but the rules, are as follows. Reflexivity. If B is a subset of A, then A tends to B. If B is a subset of A, then A tends to B, means it is a trivial functional dependency. Augmentation, if A to B and then AC tends to BC, if there is another attribute C. If there is another attribute C, then if A tends to B, then we can say AC tends to BC. Transitivity, A tends to B, B tends to C, then A tends to C. Now see, these all are two properties, these two rules. Sound and complete means, sound means do not generate any incorrect functional dependency. If we use these three rules, it always generate correct set of functional dependencies. And complete means it generate all functional dependencies that hold. But these are some functional dependencies which are generated or derived from the given set of original functional dependencies. So these three rules are there. Along with this, another four rules are there. These three rules are sound and complete. But even if, to make it simple, the computation of exclosure, to make it simple, some other rules are also used. So several further rules can be derived from three given above to simplify the practical task of computing exclosure. So augmentation or reflection, to apply it, it is difficult practically, and to minimize this task, to simplify the practical task, some further rules are used. Which are these further rules? First one is self-determination. Means every functional dependency A tends to A. It is there always. Okay, means staff number tends to staff number, you can say. Decomposition. If A tends to BC is there, then we can say A tends to B and A tends to C. Means we decompose this into two parts. As decomposition is there, union is there, means A tends to B is there, A tends to C is there, then A tends to BC. Composition, A tends to B, C tends to D, then we can combine this one left hand side and we can combine both the right hand side. The new functional dependency is AC tends to BD. AC tends to BD. So these four other rules are also used to simplify the practical task of computing exclosure or the functional dependency closure. Self-determination, decomposition, union and composition. Now see with example, then it will be clear, more clear to you. So I am going to write here example. R is equal to A, B, C, G, H, I. So here F is equal to A tends to B, A tends to C, CG tends to H and CG tends to I, B tends to H. These are some functional dependencies already given, and from this we are trying to find out F closure. We are trying to find out F closure. These are the set of functional dependencies which are given. Now apply the rules. Already I have told you in the previous slide. So using some rules, we are going to determine some of the new functional dependencies. So in this way, using this given set of functional dependencies, we can imply the F closure new set as A tends to H. Why? A tends to B, B tends to H, and so A tends to H. Then similarly AA, so we can make the union on the right hand side. A tends to BC, CG, CG, so we can make CG tends to HI. So many functional dependencies we can generate. Now see some members of F closure. A tends to H by transitivity, CG tends to HI by union, A tends to BC by union. In this way, using this set of rules, Armstrong axioms and some other rules, we can generate functional dependency closure or closure of the given set of functional dependencies. Okay. So the next and important part, that is closure of attribute set. So listen it carefully, because once you understood this closure of attribute set, then it is very easy to identify the candidate key and primary key. Because this concept, closure of attribute set, it is used to identify the candidate key and through which one of them becomes primary key. So first see how to identify the closure of attribute set. It's a very simple to identify closure of attribute set. Now see what are the rules. The set of all those attributes which can be functionally determined from an attribute set is called as closure of that attribute set. I'm reading again. The set of all those attributes which can be functionally determined from an attribute set is called as a closure of that set. Okay. Now how to identify means we need to identify some attributes which are determined from the given attributes. So closure of attribute set A. So A may be a single attribute or it may be the set of attribute. A may be a single attribute or it is a set of attribute. Single or multiple attributes. Okay. Closure of attribute set A is denoted by A closure, that is A superscript plus, okay, as a closure. Now the steps to identify the attribute closure. First, add the attributes contained in the attribute set for which the closure is being calculated to the resulting set. Means if we are calculating the A closure, then first all the attributes in the set A comes into the result. Okay, the first step. The set for which we are calculating the attribute closure, first add it into the result. So A comes into the result. Recursively add the attribute to the result set which can be functionally determined from the attributes already contained in the result. Means suppose there is a set of functional dependencies A tends to B, B tends to C in this way. And we are finding attribute closure A. Okay, so first add it into the result A and then recursively add the attribute to the resulting set which can be functionally determined from the attributes already in the result set. So in the result set already there is A, so which is determined from A, B is determined from A. So considering A tends to B, what we are going to add in the result? B. Now C is determined by B which is already in the result. So from the given functional dependency B tends to C, C also comes into the result. So in this way, the simple way we can calculate the attribute closure. That first the attribute for which we are going to determine, add it into the result, and then those attributes which are determined from A, add one by one into the result. Now see in it with detailed example. Some of the examples we are going to see here. Closure of attribute set with example. Suppose we have a relation given here. Consider a relation R A, B, C, D, E, F, G with the functional dependencies A tends to BC, BC tends to DE, D tends to F, CF tends to G. And we have to find out A closure. Now we have to find out A closure. So A first comes into the result. Now the next one that we are going to add. Now look at towards the functional dependencies. Any attribute that determine from A, we can add it into the result. So B and C determine from A. So using the functional dependency, using A tends to BC, I can add here A, B and C. Now A, B and C, all the three attributes are in the result. Now I can observe that D, E, this is functionally determined from BC which is already in the result. So using BC tends to DE, I add here A, B, C and then D and E which are determined from BC. Now the next one, F is determined from D and D is already in the result, and that's why using functional dependency D tends to F, I am going to add F here. Why? Because D is already in the result, E, F. Now the last functional dependency is G. Now check whether both C and F are in the result. Yes, both C and F are already in the result, and that's why using the functional dependency CF sent to G, we are going to add A, B, C, D, E, F, and now G. Now this is end. All the functional dependencies 4 we considered here. Means what? What is A closure? This is the A closure. This is A closure. All the attributes of the relation are in the A closure. Okay. Now we are going to try to find out. It is shown here in this way. A closure is equal to all the attributes of the relation. Now the next one, BC closure. The next one, BC closure. So when we calculate BC closure here, first we start with the first functional dependency. So BC, it is not on the left. First we add, sorry, B and C. First functional dependency is not useful here. Why? Because left hand side not in the result. Now we move towards the next functional dependency. So using this next functional dependency, BC tends to DE. As BC already in the result, BC closure is equal to BC and DE. Now the next functional dependency, D tends to F. So using D tends to F, where D is already in the result, so we add B in the F in the result. F in the result. Next one, using CF tends to G. C and F both are in the result, so we add G in the result. So when we find out the attribute closure for BC, B, C, D, E, F, G, these are the attributes of the relation in the result, but not A. But not A. Okay, so in this way. Now, in this way, once we got the attribute closure, from this, it is easy to identify the keys of the relation. Now see. So identifying keys of the relation using functional dependencies and attribute closure. The main purpose of identifying the set of functional dependencies is to specify the set of integrity constraint that must hold on a relation. Means I say that staff number tends to S name. Means what? There should be a single name for the single staff. One-to-one relation means it generates an integrity constraint on that relation must hold. An important integrity constraint to consider first is the identification of the candidate keys, and one of which is selected to be the primary key of the relation. So we need to identify the candidate key, and then it is easy to identify the primary key from for that relation. Now see how to identify the keys using closure. Okay. If the closure result, see, if the closure result is an closure result, okay, is an attribute set contains all the attributes of the relation, then the attribute set is called as the super key of that relation. If the closure result of an attribute set contains all the attributes of the relation, then that attribute set is called super key of the relation. So BC closure that we identified, I am going to write here B, C, D, E, F, G. So both closure we identified. Among that, A closure contains all the attributes of the relation. BC closure not contain a single attribute. It contains other attributes, okay? Not contains all the attribute. But when we calculate A closure, it contains all attributes of the relation. So the closure of attribute A is the entire relation schema as it is, you can observe. Thus, the attribute A is super key for that relation. The attribute A is super key for that relation. So BC is not a super key. Why? Because its attribute closure does not contain all the attributes. So whenever you have to identify the super key for the particular relation, go for the attribute closure. If it contains all the attributes of the relation, then that set of attribute is a super key. So in this example, attribute A is the super key for that relation, not BC. If there exists, now the next one. If there exists no subset of an attribute set whose closure contains all the attributes of the relation, then that attribute set is called candidate key of the relation. No subset of this super key. No subset. So can we make it subset? No. A is a single attribute, we cannot divide. Here we can divide it into two subsets, B and C. But here as it is a single attribute, it's a no subset of this attribute set contains the closure contains all the attributes of the relation. Then that becomes the candidate key. So no subset of the attribute A contains all the attributes of the relation. Thus the A is also a candidate key of the relation. Okay. In this way, we identify all the candidate keys of the relation, and among that, any one becomes the primary key. See, once again, I am repeating. If the closure result of an attribute contains all the attributes of the relation, then the attribute set is called super key of the relation. Here A is the super key. Why? Because it contains all the attributes of the relation, but BC is not. Why? It does not contain all. Once we got the super key, if there exists no subset of an attribute set whose closure contains all attributes of the relation, then that attribute set is called candidate key of that relation. No subset of attribute A contains all the attributes of the relation, so A is also a candidate key. Now we are going to see some other example, then it becomes easy for you. In the previous case, A is the super key and A is the primary key. A closure, that already that is another example. So we are going to find out A closure in this case. We are going to find out A closure in this way. There are 5 attributes A, B, C, D, E, and these 4 functional dependencies are given. So from this, first identify A closure. Now using the first functional dependency, A tends to be C. Using the first functional dependency, A tends to be C. You can observe that A tends to be C. The BC is added into the result. Then B tends to D is there. So B is already in the result. So D is added in the result. Next, CD tends to E. E is in the CD is already in the result. So E is included in the result. And E and A is already in the result. So here when we got the attribute closure, it contains all the attributes of the relation, that is A, B, C, D, E. Now A becomes the super key. A is super key. Why? Because its attribute closure result contains all the attributes of the relation. So attribute A is the super key of that relation. Now whether it is a candidate key? Yes. Why? Because it is a single attribute. So no subset of attribute A contains all the attributes of the relation. So A is also candidate key for the relation. So A is also the candidate key for the relation. Now we see another, that is CD closure. We are going to find out CD closure. So when we try to find out the CD closure here in this, first CD is added into the result. Now using the second functional dependency, CD tends to E, E comes into the result, CDE. Now using this last functional dependency, E tends to E, A comes into the result. I write here in the sequence A, C, D, E, and CD, this one we have seen. Okay, so using the first functional dependency, A tends to BC. As A is already in the result, BC comes from in the result. A, B, C already there, D and E. So what we observe that when we calculate CD closure, it also contains all the attributes of the relation. It also contains all the attributes of the relation, and that's why CD is a super key. That's why CD is a super key of the relation. Now whether it is a candidate key, that we are going to see. Whether it has a candidate key, that we are going to see. Now how to identify this whether, so this CD we can divide it into two parts, correct? C and D, or we can make it subset. So we are going to see whether its subset closure result also contains all the attributes of the result. Now CD closure, so we are going to find out C closure first. C closure, only C comes into the result using the functional dependencies, and if we calculate D closure, only D comes in the result. Means it's a subset does not contain, it's a subset when we calculate its attribute closure does not contain all attributes of the relation, does not contain all attributes of the relation R. And that's why CD is a candidate key. That's why CD is a super key and also CD is a candidate key. No subset of the attribute set CD contains all the attributes of the relation. The attribute set CD is also candidate key. Means there are two candidates key in this relation, A and CD. A and CD. Any one is chosen as the primary key. Any one, according to the database designer, any one we can choose it as a primary key. You can also try for another attributes. B and E. On the left hand side, B and E is there. So try to calculate B closure. B comes into the result first. So B is on the left hand side. So using B tends to D. D comes into the result. B comma D. Now on the any other attribute can we add here? No, we cannot add any other attribute. Only B and D into the result. Similarly, try to calculate E closure. On the left hand side, we try for all determinant. So E closure, first E comes into the result. Using this E on the left hand side, so A comes using E tends to A comes into the result. Okay, E comes into the result, A and E. A, next, using A tends to BC. Using A tends to BC. BC comes into the result, A, B, C, E. Correct? E is first added. From E, A is determined. Then A and E is there. From A, BC is determined. So BC in the result. Then B is in the result. So D also comes into the result. Using B tends to D. D is determined from B. A, B, C, D, E. So again it contains all the attributes, means E is also the candidate key. E is also the candidate key. How many candidate keys are there for this relation? There are 3 candidate keys for this relation: A, C, D and E. So in this example, if we calculate the attribute closure for A, okay, first we try to find out the attribute closure for A. So first we add A, then A tends to C is there. So we add C into the result, AC. Then C tends to A, but A is already there. We cannot add more attributes to this result. So A closure is equal to AC. Now suppose I calculate C closure. So first C I am going to add here. C tends to A is there, means A comes into the result. Then C and A is there. No other attribute we can add here. If I try to calculate B closure, calculate B closure, first I B here along with B. B tends to D is there, so D comes into the result. D is determined from B. No other attribute we can add to this result. If I calculate AB closure, then first I add AB. So A tends to C is there, so C comes into the result. A, B, C. Then C tends to A, but A is already there. B tends to D, so B is there result, so we need to add D here. Then AB tends to E. AB already there in the result, so need to add A, B, C, D, E. Now what we observe that it contains all the attributes of the relation, and that's why AB is a super key. Can we, when we make its subset A and B, its closure already we identified. Whether this subset contains all the attributes of the result? No. No subset of AB contains the closure contains all the attributes of the result. So AB is a candidate key also. AB is super key and AB is also candidate key. Why? Because no subset of AB contains all the attributes of the relation. So AB is a candidate key, along with AB is a super key. If we consider BC together, normally we determinant is used, but if I use BC closure identified, BC in the result, B in the result, so D in the result, B, C, D using the functional dependency. Okay, C is in the result, so A is in the result. A, B, C, D. Now AB is in the result, so E is in the result. A, B, C, D, E. In this way. So BC also super key, you can say. Now whether BC is a candidate key, BC is a super key, but whether BC is a candidate key, its a subset is B, its a subset is C. B closure already we identified, it contains only B. And we calculate, BD. We calculate C closure also, it contains only AC. Means no subset contains all the attributes of the result. So BC is also a candidate key. Along with super key, it is a candidate key. That is here written on this slide, that AB closure contains all the attributes, so it is a super key, and no subset of the attributes say AB contains all attributes of the relation, that AB is also a candidate key. Now our relation, that is staff branch relation. So in the staff branch relation, you can observe that staff number or determinant we only observe staff number, branch address, and this one. So if we calculate the attribute closure on the determinant side, then staff number uniquely identify all the attributes of the result, that relation. So with all these determinants, staff number attribute uniquely identifies each tuple in the relation. If we calculate batch address, it's a attribute closure. It contains only branch number and branch address. If we calculate its attribute closure, it contains only branch number and branch address. If we calculate it, then it contains branch number, position and salary. If we calculate its attribute closure, it contains branch number, position and salary. But if we calculate this, it is already uniquely identify each other attributes of the relation. Here, the only candidate key is the staff branch. And that's why it is the primary key of the relation staff branch. Staff number is the only candidate key and that's why it is only the primary key of that relation. In this way, using the attribute closure, we can identify the primary key, candidate key